In the previous movie, we described typing in factory calibrations into the black box specs. But in this one, we're going to do an actual calibration, a detailed calibration. And here we're back at our Performance Trends black box instructions. We're hooking it up. And I just want to show you what you do here. In this little diagram, it shows that you tee in these vacuum lines that come with the black box from these different ports, and where they get teed into the actual manometers on your flow bench. And what you do is, let's say you got this line here going over to this lower port on the manometer. You cut a couple inches off this line, and with the tees that come with it, tee in between, remove the remove the flow bench's pressure line from the manometer, and take that tee and a little piece you cut off and tee it in there so that you get these pressure sensors seeing the exact same pressure as the manometers. Do the same thing for the incline and the pitot tube. Pitot tube, it may not even be necessary to have a manometer teed in with it, because the factory calibrations are going to be fine for a pitot tube because you're only looking for trends across a port typically. The incline manometer is very critical though. This one you must get calibrated as precisely as possible. The vertical manometer, where you said 10 inches or 28 inches or whatever, um, is not as critical as the incline manometer. So let's say we got our black box hooked up. We're going to go into flow bench specs. We're going to go down into see details, and we're going to do an actual detailed calibration. We're going to do the incline manometer first by clicking on this button. And you see this little instruction screen come up. Before calibrating, it's critical the sensor is fully warmed up. That means that the black box has been on for 15 minutes or more. And then it says set zero pressure. Zero pressure is very easy to set. It just means that the flow bench is turned off. There's no flow going through it. So the sensor is seeing zero pressure. When it's producing zero pressure, you click on OK, and you can see up here it took 3 readings. And then it says produce an upscale reading, 70-90% of full scale if possible. And because we're on a Superflow 600 with an incline manometer, it actually reads in percent full scale, 0 to 100%. That means set about 80-85% on the incline manometer. So what we're going to do is we're going to produce that condition, and then we're going to click on OK. And this is the critical thing. You must click on OK while that 85% or whatever you set is being produced. Don't set the thing and then shut the bench off and then click on OK. You've got to click on OK while that pressure is being produced, because clicking OK is the program signal that I'm producing that pressure. So produce the pressure, then click on OK. And then it says exactly what pressure were you producing. So you should have been watching. I should have told you that, but you'll figure that out. And I produced exactly 86.5. That was a reading I saw in the incline manometer. And it says, here's the results. This is counts. This is computer language for voltage. 4,096 counts is 0 to 5 volts. So anyway, this counts was at 0 volts or 0 pressure. 86% was at this many counts, and it resulted in this offsetting factor. Now, if you saw these two count readings being almost the same, it's an indication you didn't do something right. They should be significantly different. You see, they're over 1,000 counts difference, which is good. Do you want to keep it? I'm going to say yes. And that's basically how you do a calibration. You do the same thing for your test pressure, your incline manometer. This time, instead of setting 70 to 90% of full scale, I would suggest trying to set for the upscale exactly what you're, within a couple tenths or a half inch of what you flow at. If it's 10 inches, try and set something around 10 inches. If you flow at 28, set something around 28. Because what else happens in the rest of the scale is not really important at all, because you're going to be setting 25 or 28 all the time. Same is true with the pitot tube. Actually here, if you don't have a manometer hooked up to it, the factory calibration is going to be fine for that. Same is true for these test temperatures. I've had people try and set two known temperature conditions by boiling water. The problem is the range of these temperature sensors don't go up that high. So it's pretty hard to set two known temperatures other than the dial gauges on your 110, trying to match them. But I would suggest just use the factory calibration. Um, I think you're much better off, and even though it reads a couple degrees off, you don't really care what the exact temperature is. It's the difference between the two temperatures that's important. If both of them are reading 3 degrees high, the temperature difference between the two is still the same. So I would use factory calibrations here. Swirl meter, if you happen to use our swirl meter, same idea. You will set 0 RPM. The swirl meter is not spinning. Have it read the number. Set some upscale RPM. Might be negative RPM, flowing in the opposite direction, counterclockwise. Doesn't matter. Produce some RPM, probably with a head on that's producing some swirl, and you turn the flow bench on. Then while you're producing that RPM, click on OK, record that voltage, and then it's going to ask you what was the RPM, and you're going to type in is minus 1650 RPM or something, or it's 3020 RPM. And now your swirl meter is calibrated also. Same is true for tumble. Tumble uses the same exact sensor as the swirl meter, so it's exactly the same. So that is basically how you calibrate these sensors. And once you've made the calibration, you click on back. Oh, obviously, if you got a Superflow bench, there are going to be some calibration numbers that came with the bench. This is where you type those in, and these 6 ranges, intake and exhaust. And let's say this one was not 625, but it's 622. And you get this all set up to match your bench. You might want to, the last time it was updated is there, your master bench specs. But when you click on, you can click on File and Save as my master bench specs. Or if it would ask you also when you backed out, you want to save them. As you backed out, it also asks you if you want to save them as a master bench spec. So that is how you do a calibration on the black box.